The church is supposed to direct the government. The government is not supposed to direct the church. That is not how our founding fathers intended it. And I'm tired of this separation of church and state junk that's not in the Constitution. It was in a stinking letter, and it means nothing like what.
Next slide, you said Heritage President Kevin Roberts. There is no doubt that Trump will implement Project 2025. When did he say this? December. No doubt. No doubt.
There is no doubt. Now listen, if just in case there's anyone listening, and if you still have some doubt about what's going to happen with Donald Trump and Project 2025, well, let me just tell you, let me just read it once again. There is no doubt. Did you hear it, Pastor James? Or do I have to repeat it again? Did you hear it?
I heard it loud and clear.
Just in case. Or should we say it a little louder? I don't know. But listen, no I know a lot of people who they read this and they don't want to hear that. Don't talk to me about that. I don't want to hear that. Well, guess what, Pastor James? I don't want to hear that either, But listen, pretending that nothing is happening isn't going to change anything. You've seen the ostrich, right? I mean, I don't know if ostriches really stick their heads in the ground when they see a lion coming. I don't know if they really do that, but we've seen the illustrations of how, that people say they do that. But listen, sticking your head in the ground isn't going to make the lion go away.
Yeah.
The reality is Project 2025, without a doubt, is coming. Whether you're ready for it or whether you're not ready for it. That's why we have to get ready. That's why we need to be ready. That's why we need to be founding, proclaiming, and announcing, and sowing, and planting, and disseminating. That's why you have to keep doing these videos, Pastor James, so that our people could be ready, and they will be ready. But listen, Project 2025 is coming. And that's why we're told we read in our beginning statement, it's coming with blinding force. It's going to come quickly. And we have to make sure that we are awake. Now, who said that? I didn't say that. Pastor James, you're not saying that.
Kevin Roberts.
These are people who are connected to this administration.
Correct.
They're the ones who are saying that. These are people who are in the know. These are the people who are implementing this thing. They're the ones who have the policies to make this happen.
Correct.
And they're empowering this along the way. And listen, it's 100 days. Usually the first 100 days is when we see all the things happening. Listen, I don't know if it's going to be 100 days. It could be longer, it could be less. But you know what? Soon, very soon, the emphasis is going to transition. And they're going to start talking about, you know what? We need it. We need some more directives, President Trump. We need some more mandates, some more directives, sign some more directives about prayer, about the 10 Commandments, about Sunday.
Yeah.
Brothers, policies are going to start. Yes, they started with economic directives, right?
Correct.
They're trying to reduce inflation. They're trying to lower costs. They're trying to stimulate the economy. They're trying to do something with the border crisis. Those have been the directives. But listen, brother, those directives are going to shift. They're going to change. They're telling us that it's coming. And it's going to restore not just economics and politics, but the morality is going to be restored. They're working on that. They're planning on that. It's coming. It's a distorted view of Christianity, but it's coming.
Yeah, my wife had a question. Go ahead.
Is America powerful enough to enact all of this? And that, we see that they're in such great debt. I hear so many different things that we may be considered weak. Is America strong? Speak to me about the strength of America and how how Trump will be able to do all of this and succeed.
Well, I think we have to admit, because I'll be honest with you, I thought his political career was over a long time ago. I thought it was over a long time ago. But I don't know. I mean, you hear in Revelation that there's somebody supporting this guy. It says, and the dragon, and listen, I'm not saying that is what the case is in this instance, but, the Bible reveals to us that the dragon is going to give seat and power and great authority to someone. That's what we read in the book of Revelation. And guess what? It's in the same chapter 13. And the dragon gave him power of his seat and great authority. It's going to be given to someone. And I think when you have a campaign that says, we're going to make America great again, that's the emphasis, that's the motive, that's the plan, that's where they want to go, that's where they want to take us. Do we have the greatest economy in the world? Yes, we do. We do have the greatest economy in the world. China is after us, but they're a long ways from us. Do we have the greatest military in the world? Absolutely. There's no doubt about it. No one denies that. So it's like you said, Pastor James, you read some statements about a lot of chaos is going to continue to come. A lot of more crises are going to be both natural and man-made. And ultimately, someone's going to benefit. And according to prophecy, there's only two powers that are going to be the last two that are going to be standing when it's all said and done and when the dust settles.
Yeah.
And that's the first beast of Revelation 13 and the second beast of Revelation 13. That's what God has predicted. And I think we're seeing that direction. We're heading in that direction.
Yeah, I want to quickly let people see when we're talking about Project 2025, we're not condemning everything in there. There's some things that are 100% true, right? And that's not the point. Just like we are told with poison, it could be 99% good stuff, orange juice, but one drop of poison is all you need. So in Liberty Magazine, there it is right there. I had to look it up. So at least you have an idea. People have an idea. I think it's in page 588, if I'm not mistaken. That's where you find that. So the section begins, God's ordained the Sabbath, speaking of Sunday, as a day of rest until the very recently Judeo-Christian tradition sought to honor that mandate by moral and legal regulation of work on that day. This is followed by a few sentences on why a regular day of work is beneficial, then the proposal that Congress should encourage, this is their words, Congress should encourage communal rest by amending the Fair Labor Standard Act to require that workers be paid time and a half for hours work on Sabbath. Some people can look at that and say, there's no Sunday law here. But what this is saying, workers need to pay extra to people who keep Sunday if they come into work Sunday. So what this is doing is putting the pressure on the employers to honor Sunday. So this gives validity and sympathy for Sunday. So it's changing the pressure here. So if that is the case, then it's exalting Sunday. It's making Sunday a day of rest. But what I found very interesting here, the first Sunday law did the same thing. Because when Constantine came with his Sunday law in 331 AD, he went through the workers as well, the labor union. He said, we need a day of rest that the people in the cities may rest and agricultural work has to stop. And he says, we need that day for the venerable day of the sun. So what I'm trying to say is this is laying the groundwork similar to what Constantine have done. It went through the workers, to the labor union to push it. So once it is pushed to the economy, then everything else follow. It's very interesting how that works out.
By the way, it's the churches that are saying this.
Correct.
Just want to let you know.
Yes.
It's the evangelical churches that are pushing this.
Yes.
And what they're doing by doing this, and if Congress moves on this, and they will, we're told dignitaries of church and state will unite to compel all classes to honor Sunday.
Yes.
We've been told that. That's in Great Controversy 592. It's going to happen. But what this does, that paragraph you got highlighted there, that is nationalizing what day is the Sabbath.
Correct.
Make no mistake about it. It's telling everybody it's not Thursday and it's not this Saturday, the seventh day. It's saying that Sunday is the Sabbath day. And they want that to be codified by law. And once you have the law passed, then you can impose and enforce the law, and then you can punish people who break that law. So that's where that's going.
Wow.
That's the voice of the dragon right there.
There it is. There it is.
In black and white and some green and some gray shading right there, Pastor.
And they said God ordained it.
God ordained. And they got the wrong day. Mercy. All right. Let's keep going here. We have a few slides and we are done. Trump says he will demand that interest rates drop immediately. Oh, yeah. That's when he was speaking to the World Economic Forum. Oh, yeah.
There is something here that we do want to highlight, because I'm telling you, my brothers and sisters, I mean, this is a sign. We're going to see it in the next slide, but let's look at this really quickly. I read this to Pastor last week, and he was shocked. He was shocked, and I think he had like some legal background. He says, "Andy, you know what the word demand means? It's like command." But it's a lot more serious than the command. It's a lot more serious. A demand is a final ultimatum.
Mercy.
It's when you give the last warning or else. That's what a demand is. I mean, usually this is you'll get a demand letter before you get dragged into court, and you got 20 days to do whatever it is that they want you to do, or else. That's what a demand is. Now, I don't know how you demand interest rates to drop and then they drop immediately. But here's why we're sharing this news. I want you to notice, you may say, Andy, the president has every right to make demands. And he has a right to certain expectations here in the United States because the people voted for him. My brothers and sisters, he's not just talking about the United States. This event, I don't know if you can see the picture. Can you see that little logo next to him in blue? Can you read what does that logo say, Pastor James?
Isn't that the World Economic Forum?
Yes, he's speaking he's not just talking about the United States. This was expressed at Davos, and he's speaking to the leaders of the world. And notice what he's demanding from the world, not just the United States. Let's look at our next slide. Look what he's demanding. Go ahead, you can read that.
Speaking via video to an assembly of global leaders at the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland, the new president, in the wide-ranging policy speech, did not mention the Fed by name, but made clear that he will seek lower rates. I'll demand that interest rates drop immediately, Trump said. And likewise, they should be dropping all over the world. Interest rates should follow us all over. That's a huge debate.
Listen. He is flexing a mark of the beast type of mentality here. Now, the demand to global leaders is that you have to follow us, okay? Follow us. I'm demanding, I'm ordering, okay? You better follow us or else. Our world will come to a place where the United States talks, and because of its strong presence and influence and authority, nations are going to listen.
Yep, that goes the answer.
And they're going to go along. Now, maybe because they respect him, maybe because they love him, or maybe because they fear him. But they're going to do what he says he's going to do. My brothers and sisters, that's the second beast of Revelation 13 speaking. Okay? He is speaking. And soon, what's going to happen when he says, listen, we're not just dropping interest rates anymore. We're going to do what you just read to us, Pastor James, from Project 2025. What's going to happen when the language becomes like that? See, what we're trying to show is that, listen, a system, a position of strength is being created right here, right now, where words carry weight and they have impact. All you have to do is just switch interest rates with Sunday, because that's coming. It sounds eerily similar to what we read, how the second beast in Revelation 13 is going to cause the world. They're going to demand of the world. Maybe we should read it, Pastor James. Revelation 13, 15, 16, 17. I don't know.
Yeah. Are you talking about when there is a call?
Right there.
There you go. All right.
Right there.
And he had power to give life unto the image of the beast, that the image of the beast should both speak and cause, that as many as will not worship the image of the beast should be killed.
Okay, in this sense, they're going to kill you from participating in the economy if you don't go along with his economic plans and reduce interest rates. For now, that's what he's doing. For now,
Yeah.
it's only interest rates. He's demanding interest rates, and yes, you will be killed. Your economy will be killed. Your nation will become poor and bankrupt if you don't participate in the global economy.
Yeah.
You know what embargo does to nations. When the United States says no trade with this country, you know what happens to that country.
Oh, yeah.
They don't even, I'd hate to say this, they don't even have toilet paper. They don't even have fruits. Well, unless you're in a tropical island, but you don't have anything.
Yeah, you're right.
Wow.
You're right.
And that's the Bible says he will speak, and that voice is going to become like the voice of a dragon. And we're seeing that voice already
Yeah.
on a global scale saying, you have to follow us. We expect the world to follow us, and you're going to do it. He just threatened
That's right.
the world leaders.
Yeah.
We're going to have to go down this path.
The
So
question.
yes, my brothers, this is not a little minor, insignificant events that we're seeing, brother. We're seeing a foundation. We're seeing the groundwork. We're seeing the apparatus being formed before us.
Wow. The word speak here, coming from the mouth of the beast, which a beast in Bible prophecy, Daniel 7:25, Daniel 7:15, is a kingdom. So a nation speaks through his legislative body. There has to be laws. But also the fact the laws are, it says he speaks and he cause. And the word causeth is the word enforcement, is compelling. Actually, if you read in other versions of the Bible, I'm not sure how much of these versions, but sometimes they use a different words. It says talk, order in the ISV. In the ESV, the word you find the word cause also, but let me see if I find another. There it is. Again, same thing. They're saying the same thing. But what the Bible is saying is this is legislative language. This is law. Because for you to cause as many as will not worship, it goes back to what you've said earlier. A demand is being made that has an impact internationally in the world, on the world stage.
With consequences.
With serious consequences. Yeah. And that's similar to a mandate we had a couple years ago. Do or you lose certain privileges. It's going to be, but what the Bible is saying, not only there will be economic boycott, there's a death decree. So this is a do or die.
Yes.
It's crazy.
And listen, I know some are going to say, well, Congress hasn't passed anything yet. Well, listen, executive order is a mandate and has to be followed. In fact, if you think about this, Abraham Lincoln, his Emancipation Proclamation, it was an executive order. And that's how that's how we finally gained freedom here in America.
Correct.
And eventually down the road, then Congress, they passed something, a law after, but you have to start somewhere.
Yeah,
Somebody's got to somebody's got to stick their feet out and take that first step. And I think we're starting to see a lot of this, Pastor James.
correct. It can be challenged. It can go to the House. Congress can consider it, and later on, it couldn't be taken down. But from the time it is spoken by the president, it has to be followed. That's the power. That's great authority. All right. So CBC News is speaking here. CNBC, constitutional amendment to allow Trump third term introduced in the White House.
Now, there's a very high chance that this may not happen. Okay. We're not saying he's going to be a dictator for life. That's not why we bring this news. Because in order for this amendment to take place, in order to change the Constitution, the Constitution tells us, Article 5, 2/3 of Congress have to propose the amendment, and then 3/4 of the states have to ratify. So it's a process. But here's why we bring this out. What this shows is that we have politicians that, yes, they are introducing amendments. Yes, they are introducing bills, whether they accomplish much or not. But listen, we have politicians who are all too eager to change the Constitution whenever it suits their political ambitions. And what we're seeing is whether it's the first, whether they have to do with abolishing the electoral college. There's been talks about that. We need to eliminate this electoral college. We don't like how this party always wins on electoral college. We want the popular vote. Whether it's the electoral college, whether it's the Second Amendment, every time we have, some kind of disaster, some kind of shooting, or the First Amendment, as we saw during the pandemic, where a lot of free speech were curtailed. My brothers, there are efforts, okay, that stem from people who are frustrated with our current legal restraints that the Constitution gives us. They're ready for amendments. They're ready to pass amendments. They're ready for constitutional amendments. They're ready for any kind of consensus to change it. And why are we talking about it? Why is this important? Because we're told in Review and Herald, December 24, 1889, if the people can be led to favor a Sunday law, then the clergy will extend to exert their united influence to obtain a religious amendment to the Constitution and compel the nation to keep Sunday. So this desire to change this document at will over something as simple as this, it just tells you that it's not improbable for a Sunday law amendment or a constitution in the pipeline. It's actually very viable and very much believable than this thing that we're seeing here about the third term.
But another thing to also keep in mind, in Jerome, and I love what you've said here, there is the attitude coming from many evangelicals that there's no such thing as a church and state union. And I'm sure you saw this video by Lauren Boebert. Listen to her words.
The reason we had so many overreaching regulations in our nation is because the church complied. The church is supposed to direct the government. The government is not supposed to direct the church. That is not how our founding fathers intended it. And I'm tired of this separation of church and state junk that's not in the Constitution. It was in a stinking letter, and it means nothing like what they say it does.
No, it's not in a stinking letter. It's in the Bible.
Yeah.
Jesus says, listen, give me a coin. Whose face is on it? Well, it's Caesar's face. Okay. Well, you give that which belongs to Caesar, you give that to him.
Correct.
But the things which belong to God, you give that to him. He separated right there. He forever separated these two institutions. Listen, God created both institutions, okay?
Yes.
God created not just a church, a family in the Garden of Eden, but later on, he gave man civil laws so that they can also learn how to live peacefully in society. God has ordained power, civil power, as we see in Romans chapter 13. He's the minister, the king. He's the minister of God to do his work.
Exactly.
He has his role to fulfill, and the church has a role to fulfill. There is a separation of powers in the Bible. A judge did not have full authority, and he couldn't go into the sanctuary and officiate. A priest did not have full authority. He had his role. A prophet had his work, and the king had his role. They were all separated. You didn't have one person. Well, Saul, he tried to assume all those powers. Kingly power, priestly power. I'm going to go into the temple. I'm going to sacrifice. No, wait a minute. You're going against God's word. Listen, there's only one person in the world who has all authority, and that's Jesus. He's the prophet. He's our king. He's the high priest. And he is the judge of the world. He assumes all that authority. Amen. But when he delegated that to man, he separated that. You read the scripture. I don't know what she's reading. They need to read the Bible. They actually have to read what it says. There's a separation of power, Pastor James.
Correct.
Just because you were the high priest, and just because you were a king, and just because you couldn't exceed the limits of the authority that God gave to those positions. And so, no, there's no convergence. Yes, that is witnessed when we get to the book of Revelation, where we see a union of church and state, where we see an amalgamation of the churchcraft. Ellen White says churchcraft and statecraft. That's what we see in the last days.
Correct.
It's not biblical. It's not anything that God has ordained. There are two separate institutions. They both have authority, but they are to be within the scope and the realm that God has issued to them. So no, they're twisted, my brother. They have this all wrong.
Yeah. Wow. As you were speaking, the one thing that came to my mind was GC 445. It says, when the leading churches of the United States, uniting upon such points as doctrines as are held by them in common, shall influence the state to enforce their decrees and to sustain their institution, then Protestants of America will have formed an image of the Roman hierarchy, and the infliction of civil penalties upon dissenters will inevitably result. Like, you can see this. Like, if the perspective is there's no union of church and state, that stuff is not a real thing. Once you start talking like that, you already prep for the image of the beast to be formed, because you're laying the groundwork with that mentality. And you're saying the church will control the state. And the analogy is, what we see is church and state, like you said, can work together, but they don't make good bed partners. Because whenever they make good bed partners, there's fornication and there's domestic violence. And the children
There is no example in the scriptures where Jesus ever said to his disciples, listen, we're going to have to go. We got to talk to Caesar. We got to present to him our lists of policies.
Yeah.
And you know what our founding fathers said, it says, if the church has to appeal to the state in order to survive and to exist and to evangelize and to work, then maybe they don't have the power of the Holy Spirit in you.
Exactly.
Maybe they don't have. There's a power, my brothers and sisters, that is greater than kingdoms and thrones and military and mights.
Correct.
And that's the power of the Holy Spirit.
Yes.
That's the authority that God has given. Paul says our weapons are greater. Our weapons that we have are spiritual. They will bring down kingdoms. It's much more glorious. And if the church, it's because the church has lost that connection that the churches have pretty much. There's a crisis of faith, and Protestants and Catholics, they're selling their buildings. They're selling their buildings because they're empty. And because they've lost that power, they have to seek something to replace that. And what they're using is they want to replace that with civil power.
Man.
And if they can pass a law to command people to rest on Sunday, who benefits from that? Who benefits from that?
I'm going to have my wife.
You can't work on Sunday. Everything's got to be closed on Sunday. The Sunday keeping churches benefit that. And they, you know what? They're looking to see their churches restored and filled with members again. And they believe that the Sunday law is going to help bring a time of economic prosperity to the churches, where their churches are full and they're able to raise funds, and they don't have to close and sell these buildings anymore. That's what they're trying to do. That's because they lost the true power of God, that they have to appeal to civil power.
That's right.
Just to try to maintain competitive and viable in this world.